Technology offers extraordinary potential. Too often we use that potential to capture attention rather than cultivate growth. We build systems designed to trigger reaction, rewards, impulse, and keep people engaged with whatever appears next. The result is not simply distraction, it is a way of living that trains us to react faster than we reflect. Over time, that way of living can quietly become its own form of survival. Survival is sacred. It helps us navigate uncertainty, respond to threats, and endure different seasons. But survival was never meant to be a way of life. Yet much of modern technology profits by keeping our attention fixed on what is urgent, emotional, immediate, and unresolved. It continually pulls us toward the part of ourselves that reacts rather than the part of ourselves that imagines, creates, questions, and chooses. The question is not whether technology is good or bad. The question is whether technology can be used to cultivate becoming rather than merely sustain survival. Can it help people think more deeply rather than react more quickly? Can it widen perspective rather than narrow it? Can it create environments where the thoughtful questions matter as much as the immediate answers? That is the question God's guinea pigs is trying to answer. God's guinea pigs is not a course. It is not a coaching program. It is not a productivity system. God's guinea pigs is a community that honors survival. Every season of life asks something different from us. And the habits that once protected us can quietly become the habits that keep us small. Survival narrows the horizon. It teaches us to focus on what is urgent, predictable, and safe. And for a season, that sometimes is necessary. That is why God's guinea pigs exist. Sometimes we need people who remind us that survival is not the end of the story. Because in isolation, survival slowly narrows perspective, and the familiar becomes to feel like the only possible future. Vision is what widens the horizon again. And once the horizon begins to expand, something else begins to happen. Possibility slowly returns. Direction slowly returns. Not certainty, not a perfectly mapped future. That is why God's guinea pigs exist. Because expanding horizons are difficult to sustain in isolation. But in the presence of others, we are reminded that the horizon is wider than survival allowed us to see. Once vision gives you direction, you need systems that help you keep moving as new seasons cast a shadow over your North Star. Not something rigid or overly engineered, but rhythms and practices that can evolve with you. Survival returns, seasons change, people drift. That is why God's guinea pigs exist, because systems are easy to build when someone else is walking beside you. Community helps us see what we miss, question what no longer serves us, and return to the practices that keep us aligned with who we are becoming. Becoming is rarely grand. Becoming is taking the next small step to the person you were meant to become. A quiet adjustment, a new conversation, a different decision repeated consistently over time. Not blowing up your life, not abandoning what's working, just learning to move with enough intention to align your life with the direction your vision is pointing to. That is why God's guinea pigs exist, because becoming is difficult to sustain in isolation. We need people to remind us growth does not always arrive through dramatic reinvention. Your journey does not end when you find becoming. New seasons arrive, new tensions emerge, questions that once felt settled return, asking to be explored more deeply. That is why God's guinea pigs exist. Because revisiting, revising, and refining our understanding is easier in the company of people who are willing to sit with the question long enough to discover what it is really being asked. Left alone, we often settle for the first answer. What if the real potential of technology was never speed, convenience, or distraction? What if its highest purpose was helping people become more human? God's guinea pigs was built on the belief that people grow differently in the right environment, that the thoughtful questions matter, that becoming is difficult in isolation. Left alone too long, survival convinces us that the familiar is all there is. But when people gather with honesty, curiosity, courage, something begins to happen. Perspective widens. Possibilities return. That is the kind of community I want to build. A place where people can bring real questions. A place where understanding matters more than performance. A place where becoming is practiced together. That is why God's guinea pigs exist.